are back, and with our first conversation this morning, we are joined by Zoom.
Yes, and as we said before we took our first break, we have the honor of having via Zoom in studio with us none other than Prime Minister John Briceno. Prime Minister, good morning.
Good morning, April, and good morning to both of you. And I was listening to you, Paul, when you said that I'm not going to be sweeter than the next speaker when it comes to donuts, because I'm gonna do some donuts right now.
I could imagine. We are saying if we could get some delivered to you, PM, no worry about nothing. Once you're in Belize City.
You got a plan.
Definitely.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Well, it's great to have you on, PM. Of course, we're here to discuss Hurricane Lisa, the damages, the recovery efforts, and what we foresee for the next coming weeks. So clearly, that is not as sweet as donuts. Nonetheless, PM, let me ask you first of all, where were you weathering out Hurricane Lisa? When that storm hit and we were feeling those strong winds and we were hearing the howling outside and roofs are blowing off, let me ask you, where were you?
Sweet Orange Walk. I was at home.
Yeah.
And from home, from Orange Walk, I was monitoring what was happening almost real time. Constant, getting reports constantly from Cordon Defoe and also from the Cabinet Secretary, Stuart Leslie. And from time to time, some of the ministers and other people, but these are the two persons that were keeping me up to date as to what was happening in Belize City. And of course, you got videos that people are posting on Facebook and Instagram that as to what was taking place.
I would imagine seeing some of those videos coming out was a bit alarming to you, just seeing the type of devastation.
No, it was scary. It's horrific, and in my mind, I was always constantly worrying about lives, that nobody would lose their lives. And so you look at the destruction, you look at the houses blown down, and when you think back and you reflect, we have to give thanks to our Creator, because it could have been a lot worse. Because despite all of the houses being knocked down, there was no loss of life.
Yeah. I agree.
That's almost miraculous. You all go to developed countries like the United States, for instance, in Florida, the last hurricane a few weeks ago, they had, I think it was about 10 or 12 persons that lost their life.
Yeah.
But here in little old sweet Belize, we got a direct hit, and our most vulnerable communities were the ones that were badly affected. And houses, when I was visiting Lake with Colonel, and also in Port Loyola with Giroyosha, in both instances they were telling me families that they were on a top floor, and the entire house collapsed, and nobody got hurt. Not a broken hand or boss head, nothing. So every time when I think about what happened, we give thanks. We give thanks to our Lord.
You don't even have to look to the U.S. Just the other day when Hurricane Ian hit, our neighbors' lives were lost, I think in Nicaragua, and then it went through Honduras and Guatemala. But PM, let's just step back for a bit. Go talk with us a bit about preparations for such a weather, such a natural disaster of nature. What was preparations like? How did we put things in place? I know that a state of emergency was declared early before the hurricane. What was those conversations like? What sort of meetings did you have to get into in preparation for Hurricane Lisa making landfall in Belize?
Well, certainly we have what we have NEMO. NEMO every year at the beginning of the hurricane season or before the hurricane season, around the start of the year or around by March, they start having their meetings, ensure that everyone is prepared. You have the DEMO, which is the district management organization, emergency organization, and CMO in Belize City. So everybody started to do the preparatory work so that whenever a hurricane is approaching Belize, pretty much go almost into automatic mode. People they know what they have to do, preparing the shelters, human development, making sure that we have food, the hospital preparing, making sure that they have enough medicines and doctors and nurses on standby, housing, moving around, making sure that we can try to secure as many buildings of government buildings as we can. What I did on the Tuesday, I met with cabinet, and then after that, I met with NEMO, along Colonel Defoe and all of the line ministries to be able to go through their plans and to ensure that everything was in place. And thankfully, they were in place, and they are heroes, the people at NEMO, and including the Met office, department there, Mr. Gordon. They were on top of their game, and we can see that not the results that thankfully we were as best as we could be prepared for a hurricane. Right. And again, there was no loss of life.
Well, PM, as much as anybody can prepare, when the disaster actually strikes, it always comes down to what we can resolve as we are seeing it unfold. And you rightfully mentioned earlier that you were having conversations with your General, and the Honorable Colonel Hyde and so forth. But as soon as the dust settled, what was the first line of action that took place in your office?
Well, in this case, as soon as the rain settled.
As soon as the rain settled, yes.
Well, what we did, we had to go immediately on the ground and try to get an assessment as to the amount of what damage we had. And then I took a flyover along with the Minister in charge of DEMO, Honorable Landy Habet, along with Minister Courtney, who is in charge of cooperation funds under the Foreign Ministry's office. I took a flyover to take a global look as to the damage in Belize City and the paths of the hurricane and Lisa, all the way to Belmopan and Roaring Creek, almost right to the entrance of San Ignacio, of Santa Elena San Ignacio, so that we can take a quick 500 feet above view of what was taking place. And once we saw a lot of destruction, it was not as impressive or heartbreaking as to when you actually walk on the ground and you're meeting people and you're talking to them and you see the level of destruction that had, especially as I said, our most vulnerable population in the south side of Belize City. So that's the first thing that we did. Take a quick look, try to find out if there is anybody that got hurt or they need help. And then I must commend all the area representatives in Belize City and in Belize Rural, Belize Rural Central and Belize Rural North that got damaged. They're on the go with their committees. They're out there seeing people, trying to see what they can do, how they can assist, trying to get food and water to these people. There was no electricity, there was no water. So those are the things, the first steps that we took on Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon.
When we're talking about, we've been having those that are helping with relief and so on. We had Mayor Wagner on Monday with the cleanup campaign. I wanted to dive into something that was said in terms of the housing plan, because everyone that is talking about relief is talking about materials for homes. And I've also, you were known to mention that there is a structural plan in place to aid with those that have lost their homes. And you rightfully mentioned that you can't just put a Band-Aid on it and, move on. So what is the plan moving forward to rebuild the homes that were destroyed by Hurricane Lisa?
Well, after hurricane, you have two phases. You have the relief, and then you have the recovery. The relief is when you're going out there trying to see that people are fine, getting them water, getting them food, getting them clothes if necessary. And then after that, you start to look at the recovery. And the recovery is more the medium term, you want to say, and in the weeks to come. And it includes certainly a big up has to go to BL, to John Mencia, the CEO, and his staff, because they immediately were out there, and every day I was getting reports from them. The CEO was sending them reports at midnight, when they're just starting to wrap up for the night and to continue the following day. BWSL, they got populated with water almost within a few hours after the hurricane. But when it comes to housing, we are trying as best as we possibly can. Now, I'm certain that somebody will be able to find and say, oh, see that reply, hopefully, with house, you never build. It would be impossible to build every single house the way we want because we have limited funding. But we want to build as many homes as we possibly can for those that were destroyed. If you look at what took place, all of these badly built homes, we have to start to build with the Ministry of Housing. What they're doing, they're starting to come up for sometimes as to how exactly you need to build a house. Because if you build it properly, it can withstand a hurricane. The houses that the Ministry of Housing is doing right now, the houses that we built, they're low-cost houses, but they are well built. Not a single one of them got damaged. So that's the first thing. So Minister Spat and his team and CEO Victor Spat, they have been on the ground all this time, ensuring that you could get a right assessment and right plans. So the idea is to try to build as many homes as we possibly can. We want to see if we can make some funding available, probably either through the DFC or the National Bank, for those that have jobs, like the middle class, nurses and doctors, teachers, and so forth. Those that have an income that they can access cheap funding to be able to build and to build properly. We have to set standards, or else after every hurricane, we're going to have the same thing. And so like the Minister of Housing is constantly in touch with me and calling me, and so I always have to call him back if I can't answer, and telling him, just to follow up on what is taking place. And I must commend him. I mean, he has done an awesome job here and his team. But we want to try to build as many homes as we possibly can.
Are you centered, focused on the plan itself in terms of the mapping of the city? And I ask that because you rightfully mentioned that the vulnerable communities are the ones that got hit the most, the communities where the London bridges are and so forth. So when you're talking about rebuilding, restructuring, do you have an immediate plan for perhaps a different map out and a layout for these communities?
Well, certainly, again, we're not talking about only fixing houses or homes. We also have to look at infrastructure. We have to start to fix them, to build some proper roads and with proper drainage so that the water can come out. We need to, the mouth of the Belize River, we need to dredge it. The Burden Canal, that needs to be dredged because it's silting, and when it silts, the water can't run out as quickly as possible, and that causes flooding. The Minister Spat had told me that, for instance, the houses in Belize City, we have to raise it a little bit higher because of water. So these are some of the things that we're looking at. And it's a long-term job. It's a difficult one. It's going to be costly. And we're hoping that we can get, we will get assistance from our friends, other countries that have already offered assistance, Taiwan, the United States, Canada, here in Central America. Guatemala, I spoke to President Jabate. He called me the day before and said, listen, any help we can, we're here. They immediately opened up the airspace so that all the local planes can fly into El Petén to shelter from the hurricane. And so we've had that cooperation. Mexico, of course, again, have offered help. And then certainly the IFIs will have to be able to borrow some money, use some of our funding, because it's going to be a very, very long,
Process.
it will take us some time, a long process of, for instance, look at the exit of the Philip Wilson Highway going to the Halova Bridge. That road was just built a few years ago, and it's sunk and it's broken up. So we're hoping through the Green Finance Fund, we will be able to, the GCF, we can be able to get some funding, and maybe that we would need to fix that area permanently. We have to build a causeway. Because whenever we fix it, it's going to sink
Yep.
and it's going to break up. So again, these are some of the long-term solutions that we look at. We have to put a causeway from there up to the from probably the roundabout, the Belize roundabout, Chutamal Street, maybe from around there, all the way up to the Halova Bridge. So these are some of the long-term solutions that we have to look for Belize City.
PM, I want to go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but Paul and April, what is important is that there is one time, if I've never seen this kind of cooperation and unity within Belize country,
Yeah.
that we had, they're in joint with us, town council, we had San Ignacio, Santa Elena town council, we had the mayor of San Pedro, we had Dan Griga, all of them coming into Belize City to help. Yesterday, we had the cane farmers, the Belize Cane Farmers Association. They brought, I think it's about 5 different cane loaders. Because with the cane loaders, it's more effective or more efficient to be able to collect the garbage. And so with that, they can be quickly loading up trucks. Up to the first 2 days, Thursday and Friday and Saturday, the mayor informed the cabinet that we had already picked up over 2,000 tons of debris, and yet we still had a lot more to go. And so I am very, very pleased how everybody is helping. When I hear the stories when the neighbor, this family is telling the house was falling on, the neighbor holler at them, come to my house. Yeah. And so they have to rush into somebody's house. This makes me feel so good about Belize and about how we are as a community, how we are as a country, that we're truly one another's keepers. And I thank everyone, to help. If you notice, nobody talk about politics.
Yeah.
There are 1 or 2 persons, will try to make something out about politics. But I'm told as soon as somebody does, people go after that and say, listen, it's not politics time. This is something, an emergency that's affecting each and every one of us.
So PM, I'd like to take a step back because we're talking about the assistance from the IFIs, from our bilateral partners. Have we been able to ascertain the amount of houses, the number that have been damaged, total damage, partial damages, and the value amount that will be needed to repair and rebuild houses alone?
No, I don't have that exact number right now. But right now, the damage is estimated at over $30 million, infrastructure and housing. But that does not include the schools that were damaged. Look at BES, Belize Elementary and High School and Belize High School. Some of their buildings were totally destroyed. And Mrs. Osha was telling me their buildings for their high school cannot be fixed. So again, that will have to be knocked down. We have sporting facilities that were damaged. We have some agriculture. Thankfully, it's not really bad, but it's bad, but not very bad. So again, we were spared. The productive sector was spared, so we can still continue working because when people they're making money and they could look after themselves.
Yeah.
So these are the things that we have to be careful, grateful. But certainly, I would dare say maybe close to 100 houses were knocked down, and then a lot of small little houses or plywood houses that were on the side that were also destroyed.
I note that we've already gotten contributions from the US, and I think you met with the ambassador from Taiwan yesterday. What do those contributions look like to date? You made mention of some of it, as well as a call from the president in Guatemala.
Well, what most of our of our partners are waiting for is a complete assessment. We just immediately on Thursday, in a support me along with Colonel Defoe, they prepared, I think, a two-pager where they're already estimating that it was over 10 million US dollars. But now we're doing the final touches. I believe that by early next week, we have a closer definitive figure that we can give to our partners. Some of them have been giving small donations. I mean, for instance, the Banana Growers Association on Tuesday, they went to cabinet and they presented $100,000. They were grateful that they were spared because the hurricane was going in their direction, and should it have gone in their direction, they'd have lost the entire crop. Citrus would have lost the entire crop. So it skipped them. It skipped the San Pedro and Kikoka, and came to Belize. So hopefully, tourism industry, I believe that they also are going to be making a donation. The Ambassador David Chen from Taiwan, they are one of our most staunchest allies and friends, and they immediately came and give us an initial donation of $400,000 so that we can be able to start immediate work. And of course, they're offering more help. The United States government, when I met with the chargé, was saying, well, we're waiting for the official report, and with that report, then we can then know exactly how we can do to help. They, again, through the U.S. Army, they are prepared to come in and to assist. So we have all of that coming in line to be able to get the real assistance. But at the end of the day, we have to be responsible for our own rebuilding.
Yes.
So we will have to be able to find the bulk of the financing. We're hoping again from the climate fund and the green fund that the GEF, the Global Environmental Fund, and the Green Climate Fund will be able to again get a few $1 million to be able to assist us on more the long-term help, because a lot of this is happening because of climate change. And this is what angers me, because we Belize have been doing our part in trying to conserve our environment, but it is our bigger countries like the United States and China, India. Those are some of the biggest countries that have caused the biggest problems when it comes to climate change, among many other countries, all of the developed countries. And because there's a change in the climate, it's very rare that we have hurricanes as late as here in November. I mean, we had a hurricane yesterday in Florida. It goes to show that because of our destructive behavior as humans, we are changing climate, and that has an effect. And it's unfortunate that who gets affected, it is those that are most vulnerable, like Belize, who has a low-lying coastline. When a hurricane hits the United States, it's a fraction of a percent of GDP that gets affected. When it hits Belize, I mean, it's a large number of GDP that gets affected. So we also have to be on the lookout and to be careful as to how we're going to be dealing with these matters, these issues.
Yeah, so, PM, I wanted to bring it back home in terms of discussing more of the damages that are lost. One of the underlying issues currently is that with between the BNTU and the Ministry of Education, particularly those in the Belize district. And that comes with the effects of Hurricane Lisa on certain schools in the Belize district, particularly non-private schools, sorry. And so has there been an assessment done, a tour done in and around the school districts that have been damaged by Hurricane Lisa, and what is going to be the plan moving forward to aid those schools?
First of all, I don't think there's any issue with BNTU and the ministry. What is going on is that it's the Ministry of Education that makes the assessment. They go out and look at the assessment. The different management, school management would come to Ministry of Education and say, these are my buildings that got affected. And the Ministry of Education will go and take another look. The Minister Fonseca, explained to us in cabinet that his priority is the priority that our government agrees that we need to get our children back to school immediately. I know some teachers were talking about wanting another week off, and we said, absolutely not. You have to go back to the school. We need to get our children back to school. That's why we said we're going to open schools on Monday. But obviously, if there's a classroom that was damaged and the children can't go in there, then we have to make adjustments. When you look, and I'm sorry that I use Belize as a school that is a private school. I got some pictures where they are teaching their children under the shed.
Yeah.
You know, and any little corner where they could teach them, because it's so important. Our kids have lost almost a year and a half because of COVID. So we have to get them back to school. Now, if there is a teacher whose house was badly damaged and they have to stay back for a day or two to get back, to try to do some kind of repairs or look after themselves, obviously we will allow that.
Yes.
But we have been saying teachers need to go back to school. That is non-negotiable. And I wish that, you know, at least some of the leaders in the BNT would understand that this is not politics. This is about getting our children back to school.
But has there been a tour?
We are working with the different managements, and they are giving us a report, and then we have to see how best we can assist them, because most of these managements do not have the necessary finance to be able to fix their schools.
But has there been an initial tour of the schools that have been that have reported severe damages to the buildings?
Yes, there is. The minister is working on that, and his people, along again with the Ministry of Housing, is also is going along working on that.
Right.
So they are also working on that, and once we have the exact numbers, I mean, we can make it. I don't have it yet,
Yes.
because it's not finalized, but I can tell you it's going to be the millions of dollars.
PM, I want to go back once again, because I know that last weekend, as you rightfully mentioned, you were on the ground. You took the flyover after the storm. That was on Thursday. And then by Saturday, you were on the ground meeting with people. I wanted to...
Well, Friday I was already at the high school.
Friday, right, you were at a high school on Friday. I remember that you were at a high school on Friday. But then you went on the ground into the communities on Saturday. I believe it was on Saturday, but nonetheless.
Yeah, Saturday.
Right.
Saturday.
My question is, what stood out to you in your conversations with the people on the ground? What was those interactions like with those families?
The resilience of our people, it's incredible, Paul, that, you know, that at no time did I see hopelessness. You know, people just say, you know, Prime Minister, thanks for coming to visit us. Look at what happened to my house. So this, you know, I need a few zinc, we need, you know. So what we have done is that we have issued monies to all the representatives through the Constituency Development Fund, so that they could assist with immediate relief, fixing a roof. Some of them just need to fix a roof, or fixing their house, or, you know, so plywood or board, whatever it is that they need, just to protect what they have. So that resilienceness, that conduits for that, we we as a people, we always believe that tomorrow is going to be better. We are very optimistic people. And hearing the stories how they've reached out to within the neighborhood, how they're helping during the hurricane, after the hurricane, sheltering people in their homes for the time being. Now, of course, that will not be can't stay there for very long because after that, people want their space. But that resilience, that sense of togetherness, of unity, of cooperation, of optimism, it made me feel so good as a Belizean, and even so much better as the leader of this country to say that we are so special as a people. You hear very little crime, very little, there's one time I think in Pulorela, a group, an issue with looting, but it was immediately stopped. But the BDF was awesome. I mean, they were out there early out in the streets monitoring along with the police. I must commend the police too. You never hear nobody the real problem with police. Actually, people wanted the police in the neighborhoods and the BDF so that things can be orderly immediately. So, guys, you have no idea how proud I am of our people and of us as a country.
We're talking about a Category 1 hurricane that trampled through Belize City. And, we've been having this discussion about natural disasters. And, of course, you mentioned climate change. This isn't the worst hurricane that has hit Belize, but just seeing the massive destruction and seeing the impact that it will have on our economy. Belize City is the industrial hub of the entire country. Are there any conversations or plans moving forward to see how we can perhaps shift or maybe even create other different areas for industrialization within the country of Belize outside of Belize City?
But Belize, I would not necessarily agree that it is the industrial hub. It is a financial center. It is the media center. But most of industry is outside of Belize City. But Belize continues to be very, very one of the most important communities in the country.
Yes.
But we are vulnerable. Belize City is only 1 foot above sea level. So it is important that for us to keep that in mind. So what is important now moving forward, that we have to build with standards.
Yes.
We have to ensure that the houses that we're building, and that's what Minister Spat has been working on. Minister Spat is an architect.
Okay.
One of probably the most, him and his wife, Anna Maria, they are probably among the best architects in the country, most successful structure architects, and probably one of the most successful architectural firms. And so in his mind, he knows what it is about setting up standards, especially when it comes to hurricane. Yeah. Now, I know a lot of times we build, we want to, because we don't have we have limited funding, we don't build as to making sure that we keep up some of these standards. But look at what the hurricane does. It can be more expensive on the longer term. So what we have done, and I have to commend Minister Spat, Julius has been, him and Steve, they have been amazing. They have been spectacular. They have made local housing trendy. Have you seen this local housing that they have been building? They built a 1-bedroom.
Yes.
But what does he do? What did he do? He also, when he hands over the house to the family, he gives them a plan for expansion. So you get a small house, yes, but it's structurally firm. This hurricane Category 1 came and nothing got damaged from that. Not the roof, not the windows, nothing. And then, as time goes by and you could put another bedroom, you already have the plans as to how to build it to ensure that you keep up the standards. By doing that now, everybody is asking for these low-cost housing, and we are happy that people say, that they want that. Even though I think the Association of Belize, of the engineers in Belize also are saying, well, they also want to participate, they want to help in what we're doing. So we need to be able to build to be able to withstand hurricanes.
Right.
Now, we cannot fight the force of Mother Nature. She can be very, very destructive. At Category 1, we see the damage that they did to these small homes. God forbid we have a Category 5, and I don't even want to think about it, because then it's going to be a massive devastation. And we just have to pray to our Creator, to our God, to our Lord, to protect us. But at the same time, for us to do as best as we can, to be able to also to help ourselves, as they say in the Bible, help yourself and I will help you.
Yeah.
And so that's what we have to do as a government, as a people, as a community, and as a country.
PM, we note that the census is still being tabulated at this time. How do you think this recent devastation will impact poverty levels in Belize, which is already at a very high percentage?
Well, I think one of the good news is that in 2 short years, we have managed to be reducing poverty. And also because we remember when we got into government, the unemployment rate was at probably over 25%. The last official rate, unemployment rate was at 9.2%, and now there's going to be a new one that was just recently done, and that was, I'm told it's going to be lower than the 9.2%. So the country is moving in the right direction. People are working. And so once we can keep the economy going and working and moving and creating jobs, we are going to get people out of poverty. Does that mean that they'll be rich? But they are going to be getting out of poverty, which is what we have to do. We, as a government, have a responsibility to assist the most vulnerable in our society. The elderly, the homeless, people that, the poor, the impoverished, how we can help them to uplift them. We can't be just being there with a hand out. We need to give a hand up so that then you can then be able to look after yourself. Listen, Belizeans, we are proud people, and I say that in a positive light. That, we want to take care of ourselves. Nobody wants to go hustle a minister and say, oh, give me $50. They want to be able to work and have their own $50, so they have to go to no one. And that's what we want to do. We want to be able to move away from that handouts to a hand up, so that people can look after themselves, look after their families, look after their children, that they can send their kids to school, and that we have a hospital that's working, so if you're sick, there's a hospital that you can go to, that there is low-cost financing so you can build your own home. This is the kind of Belize that we are envisioning in Plan Belize, and we're moving in that direction.
Yeah.
More and more people are working.
We're talking a lot about funds for relief, from topping up the constituency funds to funds coming from our bilateral partners, possibly seeking funds from IFIs. Let's talk a bit about
That's going to be loans, not the IFIs and lending us. I wish
loans, right? Loans.
Give us free money, but it's not.
Well, we know how that works, sir. But let's talk a bit about accountability in terms of managing these funds, particularly when it comes to those constituency funds, so that it doesn't become a free for all or skimming some off the top for my personal gain and my personal benefit, so that these aids actually gets to the people that needs it, and so that the Belizean people from across the country, those who are giving of their time in cleaning up the city, those who are giving of their resources in providing food and clothing and other materials, know that these funds, that these finances are actually reaching those people who need it. Talk a bit about accountability.
Well, what we are insisting And when we set up the Constituency Development Fund about a year and a half ago, we believe that the representative is a person that can better gauge what is needed most in their communities. For a hurricane, whilst Nemo and the people on the ground can reach out, the representatives have their own committees. They know the people, they know where they live, they know who got hurt immediately because they're being called. So we have given them monies, but as I've been saying over and over and over, that we give you this money, but you have to give accounting for it. And if you're going to top you up with some money, there has to be proper accounting for everything. Yesterday, we said when I was speaking to the people from Nemo, that when we're issuing, say we issue a mattress, and again, your reps are helping. When they take 10 mattresses, they have to give account as to who they give those mattresses so we can keep track of what we're doing. Yeah. And if they don't, then they can't get no more. They have to give accounting for everything. As I said, this money belongs to the people, and we have to ensure that we give a proper accounting and that it is used for the people that need the most help. Yeah. I think it would be criminal for anybody to think that they can spend that money on foolishness when there are people that are hurting, when there are people that they need. And I have not seen that so far. I must commend all the reps, and in this case, Paul and April, something that has never been done before. The UDP for 13 years never assisted me in Orange Walk Central. Here we are, not even the leader of the opposition is getting the funding through the constituency fund. We have even Honorable Tracy Panton, who has messaged me and thanking me for assisting, and so has Patrick Faber. I wish you had said it publicly that, thanks for the assistance, but we have given them the funds that everyone is getting. Of course, some divisions get more. For instance, like Port Loyola, Lake Independence, Freetown, Belize, Rural Central. Those are the 4 divisions that were hit the hardest, and they have the most destruction. So obviously, we have to give them more. Fort George and Caribbean Shores, they were hurt, but not as much, so they get less funds.
Well, of course, yes, go ahead.
That's how we managed to do the sharing of the funds.
Well, like you rightfully mentioned, PM, this is not the time to be, bipartisan. You have to be able to just give willingly, and we, of course, commend everyone that has taken ownership and responsibility for their part in aid and relief. You had mentioned just a little while ago about climate change and its effect, and right now COP27 is taking place in Egypt as we speak. Can you discuss at this time what Belize's participation is like at COP27, and what are the plans that we have been initiating moving forward in this meeting?
Well, I think since COP26, we've been talking about financing. And we could sit down there and go to meeting after meeting. If the developed countries do not make the funding available, we're wasting our time. Now, after the hurricane, it was next to impossible for me to go to COP27 in Egypt. I think Minister Habet is already there because he had a number of meetings, including a meeting with former Secretary of State John Kerry to talk about funding, financing. We need to see how is it that the developed countries are going to live up to the funding that they promised. They started saying that they're going to make $100 billion a year available. That has not happened. They said that they're going to work towards keeping the temperature at no more than 2.5. Now they raise it to 2.7. That's not happening. So we have to be on constantly applying as much pressure as we can to be able for them to understand. And now that we've had a hurricane that hit us in November, which is very rare, we can use that to tell them, see, look at what your destructive behavior is causing to us, that because of you refusing to do what is right, we need to be able to, we are suffering the consequences. And all along we were hoping that we could talk about mitigation,
Yeah.
how we can do the changes to avoid what is happening. But now the reality is we have to talk about adaptation, that climate change is upon us, and we have to do the necessary structural changes to be able to withstand what is happening to Mother Earth with the changes in the climate.
But how do you hold these countries accountable? You gave a speech last year at COP26, and it seems very recurring this year around. So how do you hold these these large countries accountable for their actions after COP?
It's very difficult. We just have to be able to continue to talk to them, getting into their conscience, and being. We can't come and beat up the United States, can we? You know,
Yeah.
I wish I could lash them on them so they listen and understand. No, but we can't. So just constantly putting pressure. We have, like, for instance, now some large NGOs like the Nature Conservancy, the Worldwide Fund, WWF, that are now working with us. The Nature Conservancy work with us in setting up the Blue Bond. Belize now is a trailblazer when it comes to restructuring unsustainable debt and converting it into conservation. In our case, for marine conservation, we managed to pay off over $550 million on Belize, and we converted, US, and then converted it into a blue bond of, we managed to save approximately $500 million, Belize dollars, for Belize, and then they set up a fund for marine conservation that hopefully by 2040 is going to be worth about $200 million every year now from the Blue Bond funding. We are using approximately $8 million for marine conservation. Now WWF, I was to have visited Costa Rica. They have what they call the PFP, project financing for permanence. So how we can raise a large amount of funding, of financing, that we can then use to do, to have money to be able to continue to do our conservation work. Because now it's not only marine, but it's what we call from ridge to reef.
Yeah.
Because we can be taking care of the reef, but if we don't take care of what's going on the ground, we're still going to damage the reef.
Right.
So we have to see what we can do also to do on the mainland. And so more and more of these powerful NGOs now are calling out the government, and we even within politicians within the government, within the respective countries are starting to apply pressure into the government, within the government. So it's just constant going at them and looking, showing to them what is it that we're going through, the problems that we're facing, and hopefully that we can play to their conscience. And many of them are coming around. Many of them, President Biden, for instance, have been a very strong proponent for assisting when it comes to issues of climate change. So we are very, very grateful for that.
PM, I just wanted to take another quick step back. You made mention that over 200 tons of debris has been...
2,000.
2,000.
200,000.
200,000. 2,000
No,
tons.
2,000.
All right,
2,000
good.
tons.
All right, good. Has been transported out of Belize city. I estimated yesterday, based on some interviews I did, that translates to approximately about 1,000 truckloads of debris. My question is, if you would explain a bit about who is footing this fuel bill? Is it the government? Is it the private sector? It's a massive fuel bill for such a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at the glass being half full. We would have had to pay for the trucks and the equipment and the labor and all of these things, and we're not, because they are donated themselves. Over the weekend, by the way, the Ministry of Infrastructure Development, I think, got about 4 or 5 different contractors, and they came in for 3 days to assist with their own equipment, their own fuel, to clean up, to do the cleanup. But obviously, in many instances, the government has to pay the fuel bill. For instance, the cane farmers, they are not wealthy. So, they say, well, assist us with some diesel. So we are assisting with the diesel. But there are people out there working for free. Some of them I see, I was reminded, I say, they are cane feet, they are sitting, and they have their lunch bag wrapped up with their food and sitting down in a little corner trying to eat something while they're taking a break. So most of this is donated, but when it comes to the fuel bill, obviously, in many instances, the government has to foot the bill.
Is there an estimate for the value of fuel that has to be
Not
consumed?
yet. Paul, this thing is going on every day, and honestly, right now, that is the last thing we're going to look at. I'm sorry, not that it's not important, but we're looking right now how we could get people back off to go, how we could get them in shelters. Getting out of the shelters into their own homes, or doing some rentals, renting some houses or some rooms so that they can move into once we're fixing, or they're fixing their homes. But eventually we're going to have a report. And whenever that report is ready, and it's going to take some time to get that ready, honestly, it will take a few months, but whenever that is ready, we are prepared to make it available to the public so they can see what is it that we've spent and how it has been spent.
PM, final question from us here, and we do want to thank you for being with us this morning. In retrospect, Hurricane Lisa, the devastation, the recovery efforts, what are the important lessons that have been learned up to today?
Be ready, be prepared, ensure that when the hurricane season is coming, that you have a plan, that what are your valuables that you have to put up or you have to move out. To ensure that I must thank the media. You guys were, again, you did an amazingly good job. You were not speculating, you were reporting, because many times you speculate, and I was asking, please only report what Mr. Gordon from the International Met Office was reporting, and you lived up to that. And try to plan properly that when you build roads, you have to put in drains, we have to, and it's expensive, I agree. And we have limited resources, but that we need to plan and build with more resiliency so that we can be able to withstand the force of Mother Nature as best as we possibly can.
PM, thank you so much
I
for
want
taking
to-
the time.
Go
Yes,
ahead.
I want to finish off one more thing, and I know it's the last thing in people's mind, but tomorrow is the 11th of November. We celebrate our second anniversary in government. I want to thank the Belizean people for giving us this incredible opportunity and honor to represent them, to be able to work for them. It's been a tough job. It's been very difficult. We took it under the worst conditions that any government has ever taken over the mantle of governance. But I want to thank the Belizean people for that opportunity. I want to assure Belizeans that every single day, all of us, we get up thinking about what is the work that we have to do ahead of us for the day, and how is it that we're going to be able to make Belize better? How is it that we're going to be able to fight poverty, climate, crime, education, health, housing? These are the things that drives us every single day, and that we made a promise that we want to build a Belize that works for everyone. So on behalf of the People's United Party, on behalf of our government, we give a sincere thank you to the Belizean people for their support, for their understanding, for their cooperation with us as we work towards building Belize for everyone.
Wow.
Thank you, well said, PM. And we thank you so much for taking the time for you to be here with us this morning, especially under the conditions of the aftermath of Hurricane Lisa. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, Brian Paul, thank you so much. And you all take care and continue doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we are going to take another short break and we'll be right back with more OYE. Stay tuned.